Going live and it's not nothing happening. It's like webcam stuff from yesterday. Good morning, everybody. Those of you in North America and rest of the that part of the hemisphere, and good afternoon to everybody in Spain and Europe. And welcome everyone, no matter where you are, to session number 2 of the Great Education Continuums for Lifetime of Education in 52 weeks. However, before I start, since this is the first time and it sounds like there might be a few people who might be having a little trouble getting into the session, so I will ask everybody's indulgence just for a few minutes. So we give everybody a few minutes to get settled, and then I will get started. In the meantime, those of you tennis fans, especially in Spain, there's a great tennis match going on between Alcaraz and Djokovic. And not to be a spoiler, and this is the only time I'm telling everybody what the current score is. After that, I won't spoil it for everybody. Right now, Alcaraz is up 6-2 on the first set and 1-0 in the second set, and on his own serve. So he has already broken him once. Okay, without any further ado, let me get started. So, as usual, we start each session with stating our goal, our purpose. Why are we doing this? We are doing all this because we are all trying to do better at whatever that we do so that we can have a better life. And what we do depends on the choices we make and the decisions we take. This in turn depends on education, which is the knowledge and the skills to apply that knowledge in order to succeed in our goals. Therefore, the better the education, the better our lives. Now, education is not just what we learn in school, but the total sum of what we learn through all aspects of our lives, and that is great education. And in the last session, session number 1, on July 4th, we discussed great education in great details. We talked about it being globally relevant education and training. And then we talked about why we started this thing on July 4th, which is Independence Day of America. But more importantly, because to me, America and July 4th represents celebrating freedom, not just freedom from slavery or anything, but freedom in true sense of the word in all aspects of our lives. And then we learned, or I shared a lesson, which was anything ever learned is never lost. And that is one of the 52 lessons that I'll be sharing over the 52 weeks that I have learned and which have helped me greatly in having a better life. So, now also last session, when we ended, I asked the audience for some questions about, hey, what is it that is on your mind? What is it you would like to talk about? Just so that I have a sense of, hey, I'm making an assumption that everybody's wanting a better life. Maybe there are other things which for some people may not be. And basically, the response I got is, in general, most people think of better life as better wealth. The more money and wealth you have, the better your chances of having a better life. That's pretty common, and that's understandable. And then in addition, there were some other questions, and I picked 3 of them, which from my WhatsApp chat. And one of them was, and I'm going to write them as I got them, What is the meaning of life? Or, in other words, why are we here? What does success mean? And how do we achieve it? I promise you, I did not plan those questions. They just happened to be there. And that's what kind of today's session is all about. But in fact, all the sessions about success and how to achieve it and life and so on and so forth. So, in today's session number 2, we will, as I mentioned just now, since that's number 1 on people's minds, wealth, we're going to talk about money, because money is just a way of measuring wealth. Then we're going to talk about what is life, and we are going to have a kind of a discussion and more kind of a kind of scientific way of looking at life. We call it the life process. We'll talk about that. And then I'm going to share another lesson that is relevant to this. And then maybe we'll ask some more questions at the end. Some of them is, what is life? We talked about already. What am I doing here? Where am I? Who am I? Why do I do? What do I do? And so on and so forth. And some of these questions are really relevant, like the money question, which is why we're going to talk about it, like the life questions. But some questions take a lot longer to answer than others. And I'll mention one of those as an example. Over about 60 years ago, when I was growing up in Karachi, Pakistan, we are pretty religious people over there, and we talked about God. And I remember one night lying in bed, looking at the stars, at this huge universe out there, and it occurred to me that, hey, wow, that's awesome! What a great universe place that we have, that we live in, and God created this. So if God created this, it occurred to me, I wondered, now is God inside or outside the universe? And that was kind of an interesting thought. And as young people do, I kind of, thinking about it, fell asleep. And over the years, that question had been in the back of my mind. And every time something relevant happens, it kind of, little piece of the puzzle keeps going in until, I finally, what I thought, found my answer to that question. And that we will at some point share down the road, because it's not really that relevant to this particular discussion. Today's discussion is about money. Money, money, money. Money makes the world go round, and money is what leads to wealth, and we all know about money, right? The trouble is, we don't really understand how it works as well as we really should. It is like breathing. We take breathing for granted. We all know how to breathe, right? Everybody knows how to breathe. But if you talk to the people who are swimmers, athletes, and so on and so forth, they will tell you that there is a special way of breathing which is more efficient, better to help you achieve your goals more effectively. Money, life is exactly the same way. The better you understand it, the better your chances of being able to use it to your benefit and or avoid being harmed from it. So, money, as I said, is a way to measure wealth. Now, what exactly does that mean, money, before we continue it and take it for granted? Money is basically something that you can use to get resources that you can use to get stuff that you need. All right. So if I want to buy an apple, a kilo of apple, I got to spend so many dollars or euros to get that apple. And we take it for granted that, we should have enough money to be able to buy what we need. What we don't really understand is that money is going down in value on a regular basis. In other words, we are losing money whether we have it or not. So if we need to have it so much money down the road, we need to make sure that we have way of getting more than what we have now to have the same stuff a year from now. In other words, I'm talking about inflation. Inflation is the rate at which the money or you lose money. And that is just one way of losing money. So, if you are not making any money and you're losing it, you already got a problem. So right away, we got to have a way of getting more money than we have in order just to be breaking even in the future. That is something we have really hardly any control over because inflation is there. So that's one way you lose money. Unfortunately, that's not the only way. There are actually 3 or 4 other ways, very relevant, very obvious, that we don't appreciate that we lose money through. One of them is debt, more specifically, credit card debt. So, this credit card phenomena, I mean, people use it all the time. And I used to take it for granted, and I thought everybody understood it until one time in one of my classes in high school, I talked to the kids when I was talking about compound interest, and I talked to them about credit cards and explained to them how it worked. I was shocked to find out that most of them had no clue how the credit card actually works. As far as they were concerned, credit card is like a free money. Hey, I need to buy a dress for prom. I go there, I use my dad's credit card. Bingo, I got it. And there it is. They had no real sense for what it cost to have that credit card and what it really costs if you don't know how to manage it properly. So we're going to talk a little bit about credit card. And what really even more surprised me was after the session, the student said to me, "Hey, Mr. Khan, maybe this is a lesson you should be talking to our parents about, because I don't think most of them really understand how bad this is." So let me tell you what I told them, which woke them up to reality. So here it goes. And I'm sure many of us use credit cards all the time. Credit cards is a really good way for some people to make money, but for most people to lose money. And this is how it works. Let's suppose you have a credit card today and you need to spend your expenses are $1,000 for the month, and you're gonna spend $1,000 for a month. And you can use your credit card, buy the stuff, and at the end of next month, hopefully you will pay it. And let's say something extraordinary happened, and instead of $1,000 this month, you need to just spend $1,500. So you want to borrow $500 from the credit card that you're not going to pay. And so you say, okay, no problem. I got a credit card. I can pay my money back. Next month, I'm going to pay the money. Now, next month comes along, you still have your $1,000 expenses, and you may not have that extra 500, but you really don't have the extra 500 to pay for that one. So now you can't pay off your credit card amount. And when the bill comes, it'll say, oh, you owe $1,000 from last month, right? And of which there was included the 500. So you say, okay, when I don't have really $1,000 to pay, let me pay half of it. In fact, the credit card company doesn't even encourage you to pay all of it. If you owe them $1,000, they will say, hey, your minimum payment is $25. If you pay $25, you're good. You can keep using the credit card and borrow more money. And so the next month, you're not thinking, oh my God, I'm getting in debt. Unless your income is increasing a lot, your debt is going higher and higher. Now, you might say, that's okay, normal debt, inflation goes up, so I'm losing money, but I borrow money, I'll pay it back. The only trouble is The interest rate that the credit card company charging you is 24%, when the regular interest rate is about 5%, inflation is about 3%. So if you were to invest money or put the money in a bank or something like that, if they're good, you might get 5% on your money. But on the credit card, you are paying 24%. And whoa, that's a lot. You're going back. And if you can't pay it back, it is now you're losing, paying interest on the interest, which is quite a bit. Not only that, that's not all the bad news. The bad news is that not only are they charging 24% interest, they are charging compound interest. And in next session, we will talk about the difference between compound interest and simple interest. And compound interest means the more frequently the interest is accumulated, the greater the amount you owe. So some people would say, hey, we'll accrue interest. Normally, simple interest is per year. All right. But no, when you invest money or put money in the bank or something, they give you interest quarterly. The credit card company, they don't accrue interest quarterly or annually. They accrue interest daily, every day. And it's called exponential growth, and your debt is growing exponentially. Compound interest is good if you are lending money. It is bad if you are borrowing money. So I'm not suggesting that, hey, people should never borrow money. I'm not suggesting that people should not have credit cards. It's not about the credit card companies or about debt. It's not about me in fact telling anybody what to do. I'm just sharing you what I know, what I would do, and then I'm giving you the information so that you choose the best decision which is for you. Okay? Now, I said credit cards are a good way to lose money. And debt is not very good. So in fact, Shakespeare one time said, hey, neither borrower nor a lender be. And there is some validity to it. But what the caveat is that it is non-manageable debt that is bad for you. So I say, hey, what's a manageable debt? Manageable debt is what you are able to pay back in a reasonably short amount of time. Okay. Unmanageable debt is when you can't pay it back. Okay. So, for example, almost everybody has mortgages, and that is a necessary manageable debt as long as you're not buying something which is beyond your income level. So, credit cards are a great way to lose money and get yourself into a deeper and deeper into hole. How deep that hole is, or depending on the interest and accrual, you will understand next lesson better when I actually talk about compound interest, and you can see how fast it is growing, and it is scary. All right. Now, since I've talked about credit part, let me finish the thought. And if there are questions, people can ask me. By the way, talking about that, if people have questions, you can feel free to just write in the chat box. And we're going to have 3 breaks where people can ask questions, and I'll be able to happy to answer those questions for you. So to finish the thought about credit cards, as far as I know, there are only 3 ways that I know to beat the credit card system. So I have lots of credit cards, and I use them a lot. In fact, I try to pay everything that I want to go restaurant, this and that and the other. I use credit cards. You might say, hey, you're talking about both sides of your mouth. One minute you say it's really terrible, the other minute you say, hey, I use it all the time. Well, I use a credit card all the time, but I have an automatic payment system whereby the my bank automatically pays off whatever money that I owe to the credit card company on the last statement. Okay. Now, the only thing is the credit card company does not charge you interest on the last month of a statement that money you borrowed to buy stuff. Okay. It's the after the second this is the second month of the statement that they start charging you interest. So if I pay off what I owe the last statement, then they're not charging me interest. So right away, I'm not paying them any interest. So you might say, oh, that's pretty good, right? Number one. Number two, so why use it in the first place? Well, because one, even though it's a little amount of money, it's like I'm borrowing money at zero interest rate. Well, that's pretty good. Every little bit counts. Secondly, the other value is that with credit cards, you get rewards and all kinds of other benefits for using the credit card. So, and I travel quite a bit, so I get those rewards, and rewards actually are money. And as I said, every little bit counts. So that's good. So it's costing me less to buy stuff. The third thing is I actually, when I'm buying stocks, investing money, I buy credit card company stocks. Why? Because those guys are not going broke. All right. They make money all the time. So I might as well own their stock so that, I am not losing money in that sense. I'm actually making money. So that's the three ways that you can beat the credit card system. So you might say, hey, wait a minute. How come the credit card companies are letting you have these advantages for nothing? Sorry, no such luck. It is not for nothing. You see, when I use as a customer the credit card, all the money they make off of me is pure profit bonus. Why? Because when I use, or anybody uses a credit card from a merchant to buy something, the credit card company charges 2.85% approximately to the vendor, the seller, for the privilege of using a credit card. So you think that the seller paying for that? That is built into the price that you pay. So you're paying for the credit card anyway, whether you use it or not. It is for that reason. Sometime if you go to the United States, you go to the gas station, you will see two prices. One says with credit card, one without the credit card. That's because the gas company is saying, hey, if you don't use the credit card, why do you have to pay for it? So we'll give you the discounts because we are not going to pay for the 2.8%. So we will give it back to you. All right. But in general, the credit card companies already made the money before you even use the credit card. So since I've already paid for it, I'm going to use the bloody thing, and I do. So that's the way that system works. Bottom line is, if you can't pay it back and you borrow money from the credit card, you are in big doo-doo. And unfortunately, if you look at the news and all that, you'll find in America, many people have thousands of dollars of debt. Okay. Now, in addition to that, how else do you lose money? Okay, this is scary. And I have done some blogs last week. All the blogs were on this topic. So this other topic is you are losing money. Not that you have to. I mean, inflation you can't do anything about because you have to, right? Credit card company, you have control over. But this one that I'm about to show you, you kind of do have control over, but you really do not. How do you lose money? You lose money through the government. And the best way for me to explain that is to show you, what they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and and so if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a moving picture, a video must be worth a lot more. So I'm sharing a kind of a moving video for you. It takes a few seconds. The technology is, even though pretty good, takes a little while. I am hoping that you can actually see this blue graphic which says, what is the national debt today? Um, I hope everybody can see it, right? Somebody going to tell me that you can, and um, okay, fantastic. So I've just been told that yes, it's up there. People can see it, and what you see is this. This is the national debt of United States. United States government owes because it has borrowed $34 trillion, and that debt is going up because they have already buying money. And in fact, the debt is going up is because they owe interest on it, and that interest is going up all the time, and therefore your debt is going up. Now, this is also common. People show you or focus on something that is interesting and all that, but really not that relevant. What is really relevant to us, to you and I, is this number at the bottom. You see that little blue guy, and it says $103,641. Well, that is the amount of money every single American owes to somebody. This is our individual debt. So if you are an American, and this, I'm just not making this up, this is the screen. That's what this screen says. If you are an American, you owe $103,641. And if you are having a baby, the moment the baby gets a social security number, that baby owes $103,641. Not to mention any other debt that this poor baby is going to incur over her lifetime or his lifetime, especially now you know all about the debt from education. The point is, this is in some ways a scary thing, because how can you have a good life if you owe that kind of a money? Do you understand? $103,000 in debt. The average income, family income in America, as I don't know exact number, but it's approximately $48,000-$50,000. If you were to use that money for nothing but just paying the damn debt, you still won't be able to pay it back. That's scary to me. Now, can we do something about it? Obviously, yes. But to what extent, I don't know. We'll talk about that another time. My point was that this is the debt that I'm incurring no matter what I do, being in America. All right. And any other debt that I owe. So I'm not owing any more money. This is just bad enough as it is. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to make that point home, that we are losing money even before we start. Like the example I used for the poor baby who is born. Then, how else am I losing money? I mean, there might be lots of other ways. People are conning you, cheating you, and all that kind of fun stuff, robbing and this and that and the other. All besides those, I'm not even counting those. I'm talking about the legitimate ways, how day-to-day basis. Okay, I've shut off that screen. Hopefully, I am back talking to you. And the last thing that I think worth mentioning, how we are losing money, is through advertisement. And you say, hey, whoa, 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 whoa. How can I be losing money out of advertisement? Well, the way you lose money out of advertisement is because advertisements are a great way. And in America, particularly, we have gotten so used to being manipulated by the ads, to buy things that we don't need. I was just watching something else, whatever, sports channel, news channel, all that, and they're talking about, whoa, about betting, and they're talking about responsible betting. Talk about an oxymoron. Betting is a guaranteed least way of losing money in the long run. Okay, there is no ifs and buts about it. Okay, and that just, I'm talking about betting as an example, but all kinds of advertisement. Why? Because all the time they're encouraging you to buy things that you don't need, and therefore it's a great way to lose money, and we have to be aware of that it is, and to be able to do something about it. I'm not saying that you shouldn't watch any advertisement, or you shouldn't live in America or any of that stuff. I'm just saying these are the ways of losing money, and before we can talk about making money or having money or being wealthy, we got to make sure it's not losing out. If you're building a bathtub and you're going to have a bath, and there is a leak in the bathtub faster than what you can pour in here, it ain't good. So that's what money is about in that sense, and how we are losing money. Obviously, we're not going to go on for a long time. So we are going to, in another session, talk about how to grow money, right? And we're going to talk about how to get money, and a few other things, and some of the math behind money, and so on and so forth. But this is a good introduction and a kind of a wake-up call to say, hey, we really better understand how this bloody money thing works, so that we can have a better life. And as I said, I'm going to share some of the experiences of my own, and if they're helpful, fantastic. In fact, one of the solutions that we have talked about, and what we are part of this whole initiative, is our global lifebond community, where we talk about competition is a great way to succeed for a few, but collaboration is a better way to succeed for the many. So we work together, we don't compete, and we preserve our resources, and we have a chance of maybe having a better life. But in a competitive world, very few make a better life. The other 99% has a tough time. So before I take a really quick break, I think I've got longer than what I expected to on this one. So I'll give maybe a 2-minute break if there are any questions, and somebody can ask. And if not, then we'll talk about the second part of the session, which is about life and the life process. I don't know if I see any questions in the chat. I don't see anybody. By the way, those of you, if you have questions, you can always write in the chat through the stream. But if you really want to have a interaction, and you want to be, you can join our Google Meet, and then from there you can ask questions in person and go from there. So I'm going to take a little 30-second break, have a sip of my tea. And I don't see any questions in there. So maybe since I've used up more time, maybe I should just start with this session about what is life. I said somebody actually asked that question, what is life? So I'm going to try and answer that question as best as we can. So as we said in our purpose of thing, we want to have a better life, and we want to succeed, and in doing whatever we do to have a better life. And the better we know how to succeed, the better we are, right? And basically, life is what we do, because that's what we are doing. But what exactly is it that we do? What is the common denominator in everything that we do? I suggest that in everything we do, the common denominator is change management. We are managing change. What does that mean? Well, there are two aspects to managing change. One is, if I want something, I want to do something, I go and reduce and change my environment, whatever circumstances, to get to the result that I want. So, uh, if I want food, I have to go and cause some change, move from here to there, maybe cook, blah, 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 to get what I want. That is one type of change. The other type of change is one which is occurring anyway and likely to do us damage, or is a change that I don't want, in which case I have to cause change to counter that change. So if I'm outside and if it is all of a sudden starts raining, I don't want that to get wet. So I have to cause some change. So I have to open an umbrella and then I manage that change. And if you think about it, everything that we do falls into those two categories. Either we are causing change to achieve something, or we are causing change to prevent something from happening. So basically, doing is change management. And life is the sum of all these doings. In other words, life is what you and I, in a particular place, in this case, the universe, the planet Earth, and we can look it down into smaller subsections of that, do, in other words, undertake various activities using resources available to us in order to achieve a certain objective or a goal. I call this life process. Now, let me show you again pictorially what I mean by a life process. So, again, it may take a few seconds, and so that we can see, where am I? Let me know if you see the screen show up. So it takes a few minutes for it to come up when you are there. So is share screen. What you should see, uh, yeah, next desire. And let me know if you see that. Now, that next desire is, what is it that we want? I'm hungry, I'm cold, I'm thirsty, whatever. It's a desire that occurs, or I want to go to the moon. Oh, that's cool. If you want to go to the moon, be my guest. But it's a desire. But just having the desire doesn't do nothing. It's just dreaming or whatever. It has to turn into a goal that you can say, I'm going to achieve it. So if I am hungry, I got to set a goal. Either I got to cook, or I got to go out to a restaurant, whatever. So a desire turns into a goal that we need to work towards. I'm assuming that we can see that chart. Now, in order to achieve that goal, we have to apply some resources, spend money, whatever, right? In order to get to that goal. But just resources is not enough, because when we have the resources, we also have to overcome certain constraints that we have to deal with. So if I say, hey, I want to go to a restaurant, cool, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, Well, I have the resources, I have a car, I can go there, but a lot of the restaurants are not open. So those are some real constraints that um, we have to account for in order to achieve our objective. Now, if that's not enough, that's why they say life is tough. We also have to deal with what we call artificial constraints, constraints that we think are there, but really aren't, and some of those are rules and regulations and whatever, or misinformation. Those are some real artificial constraints, oxymoron, real artificial constraints. And when we combine all of those together, resources, constraints, artificial constraints, that turns into an act. That's what we do in order to achieve the goal. Now, when we do those things, something happens. Okay, a result happens. So I found the I found the place. I drove to the restaurant and I go to the window and I ordered my food. For example, I don't know, fast food somewhere. I order a hamburger. So now, did I get my hamburger? Well, I'm not sure yet because depend what the constraint was. Maybe I ordered the food and I didn't have enough money, so I'm not getting the hamburger. In other words, something happens as a consequence of all these things that we do. As in, two possibilities. One, why compare their outcome to the goal, and if they match, then I have my achieved my goal and satisfy my desire. That is success. If, on the other hand, when I match my result to the goal, I got the food, but I'm still hungry. I didn't get the right amount, or didn't get it because I didn't have enough money. Oops. Uh, I got to make some changes to the constraints or the resources and do that whole process again, not in exactly the same way, because if I do exactly the same bloody way, I'm going to get most likely exactly the same result. So I got to make some changes, modify those constraints, and then go through the process until we achieve success. This is the life process. This is what you and I, whether we like it or not, do constantly, every minute, every second of the day, for whatever reason. Okay? The point is, the better we understand this process, the more successful we are likely to be in order to achieve our goals and have a better life. Now, better life doesn't mean that we have to be successful every time. That's not bloody likely. But the better life is to be able to succeed more often than not. And that's the way I look at life. That's the way I have been looking at life. And non-disclosure, full disclosure, I came across this chart many, many, many years ago. I think it was in 1969, maybe. I think it was. I was doing something to do with computer science at the time, and one of my teachers, Jim Schofield, talked to me about operational research. And there's a fellow by the name of Norbert Vienna, who was called the master of operational research, and he had come up with a chart which is similar to this one, and it's also used for computers because it has to do with input, output, processing, and so on and so forth. And I have modified that because I think it applies to life in a way, and come up with this life process. I live it constantly. I deal with it, and every time, no matter how much I use it, I'm learning more and more and getting it better, and that's fine. And that's what I want to share with a lot of people. Discuss this, how to master this thing so that we can do better in life. That is a screen. And if we need to go back to it, we can go back to it if people have some questions. Um, but that's the life process. And basically, summarize it while it's coming up. You make a decision which sets into a goal. You got to make sure that your goal is actually going to achieve what you want and you satisfy your desire. Then you find some resources to apply it. You figure out the constraints, artificial constraints, action, blah blah blah, and you get the result. You compare it to your goal, and then you modify your constraints. Now, this one little piece which has to do with education. Most people learn this, apply this through what I call monkey see, monkey do, which means they learn how somebody else has done something and we try to emulate it. And that's cool. That's one way of doing it, and that's fine. Uh, I'm not saying it's a bad way, we should not be doing it. I think there is a better way. And that better way is to be able to, which as humans, we are the only, I think, species who has that capacity that we can actually do this whole process without actually doing it in our head, so that we can determine, hey, if I do this, this is my goal. If I do this, if I put these resources here, the constraints, haha, I'm going to get the result. Then I can compare it and I say, oh, it's called simulation. And so the better we know how to do this in simulation before we actually do it, the better our chances of success. So that's what we're going to spend a lot of time talking about, because the question number 3, I think, was, hey, what is success? First question, what is life? We talked about that very almost precisely. We talked about what success means, which we have defined that. And we have the third thing was how to achieve it. And that's not something you can learn in 30 seconds. That's something we're going to spend a lot of time on. So the important thing is, from this life cycle or life process, what you believe consciously or otherwise will actually determine your action. That is part of the constraints and all the other stuff, you know. And the other key point about this life process is, it is really, really important that we understand that the goals that we are setting will actually help us meet the desire. It is shocking to me, and has been learning, one of the most weirdest thing I've learned is how many times people spend so much time achieving goals thinking that will satisfy a certain desire when it actually doesn't. And I used to talk to this to my students, and they're, why are you doing this? I want to be a doctor. Why? Well, my family is a doctor, everybody is a doctor, but do you really enjoy being a doctor or doing whatever? No, I mean, I like to help people, but I hate the sight of blood. Hello. You know what I mean? So, and I know lots of people who have spent a lifetime achieving careers, been pretty successful, but at the end finding out that, this is not what I really want to do. And I'm sure you have heard a lot of stories where that happens. So that's one of the things. And what is today's kind of lesson? We kind of talked a lot about it when we were talking about credit card, but the actual lesson is, in simple terms, pay now or pay later. Later is so much more expensive. And, it's not something that I come up with just now. There are different variations of this. Different people have said it different ways, some of those sayings are, hey, what you can do tomorrow, don't leave for, or what you can do today, don't leave for tomorrow, that kind of stuff. And I used to actually come up with this, use this pay now or pay later a lot more with the students again, when they were talking about, hey, oh, I'm behind with my homework. You know, well, how can you're behind your homework? You know, and I can understand why, but I used to tell them, if you have homework to do today, right? Yeah, you can do it as quickly as you can and today and stay up with the thing here. A better way is find out what your homework is tomorrow, do that today. So when tomorrow comes, you are already ahead. So you can't be behind if you are ahead. That's part of what I mean by pay now or pay later. Later is more expensive. And if you pay earlier, you're better off. Same thing with the credit cards, right? Pay now, okay, which is why I do. Pay later is so much more expensive. We can't even figure it out. So we got to figure out how to make sure we stay ahead. And they used to say, "Oh my God, Mr. Khan, that is so hard. How do you stay ahead?" And I say, the funny thing is, that's a kind of an oxymoron. It takes exactly the same amount of effort to get ahead than it is to stay along the same line. Why? Because you're doing the same stuff, only it is shifted one day over. So if you start earlier, then that's it. You're doing tomorrow's work today, and you're not going to be behind. It is really that simple. And it's the little things like this that make a huge difference in having a better life. So, just to summarize, we've talked about money and how it loses money. So in the next session, we're going to talk about how to grow money, because if you can grow money more than what you're losing, then you're going to be ahead and you're not going to be paying later, you're going to be paying now. So we're going to learn how to grow money invested. Then we're going to learn a little bit more about this change management and specifically about this life process and the money behind, or the math behind the money. And then we're going to have a golden lesson number 3 for that section. Now, before we conclude for the next 3 or 4 or 5 minutes that we have, I have a request to all of you, and I'm going to ask every time. You got the emails where you get your reminders and all that. It really would be helpful if in your email you could reply with these 3 things for me. These sessions, what you liked, what could be better, and what else is on your mind. It's not about me, it's about us doing things together. We are doing the best that we can in terms of what we think it is, but we keep running into all kinds of technology problems, issues, and all that. We solve them, but the better the feedback we get, the better we are able to handle these things. And remember, finally, to conclude, that this 52-week sessions is one part of a 3-legged stool, if you like, collected together to help us succeed. This is weekly sessions. Then we have daily blogs on lifebond.org. And in fact, we've written some about the national debt and all that. So that's relevant. And then we are going to, then we have this community called lifebond.net, where we work together to help each other succeed, not to compete with each other, because that is a more efficient way of achieving our goals than it is to fight with everybody else. Now you might say, hey, why does everybody compete? Competition is part of life, but not most of the competition that we have is necessary. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the competition, but the point is, that's what this virtual community is, where we come together to help each other. So, for example, this thing that we are doing right now, there are a few of us working because we want to do this and successful. But the more people come together and work with each other to help each other, the better chance everybody has of successful in whatever it is that they're trying to do. There is no set way. I'm not trying to tell you, oh, you got to do it this way or that way and all that. All I'm trying to do is share with people the knowledge and the ability to be able to make the best decision for them. It shouldn't be, when people should not be told what to do. They should be told how things are and about the constraints and everything else so they can make smart decisions. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for your time. And we have 4 more minutes. If you have any more questions, I can entertain them. And I'll be happy to. So if somebody has a question, now is the time to ask. Okay, somebody said, thank you, Reena. You're very welcome, darling. Anybody else? Any questions? Don't be shy now. One of the things we talk about foundation of learning is to ask the questions. Make sure you are satisfied. Don't somebody give you some cockamamie stuff and then you say, oh, you ask questions. Chat public. Are there any questions, guys? Nobody? Can't be that comprehensive. Nobody has any questions? Dhruv, you don't have that question you were asking me in the session? You don't want to ask now? If not, I will ask for you. So go ahead, ask. Don't be shy. All right, go ahead, ask. Yeah. That is a really, really excellent, great question, and I'm glad you asked. Also, and I'm happy to answer that question for you. So everything we said is true. America is one of the greatest nations on earth that I know, and what I said about the debt is also true. So everybody is the thing. So the other thing, again, you will see from the blogs is, first of all, America isn't the only country that has national debt or the thing like that. So every country has debt. And like we said, manageable debt is not a problem. So one of the most successful countries, Norway, Sweden and all that, if you look at their national debt, it is kind of steady like this, because they decide the credit card, they pay it off. The problem isn't the fact that you have national debt. The problem is that it is continuously growing and you are not paying any of it back. So it's growing even more, right? So why I'm not saying about US not being it is still the greatest country. The reason the debt is not that big a problem for US is because in the United States we have the capacity and the ability to manage that debt. So our problem isn't the fact that we can't pay it. Our problem is that we are misusing the stupid things. So how do we do that? By electing or irresponsible people to look after money. So basically, let's be honest about it. The fact is, when we have elections, we elect either Republicans or Democrats or whoever to what we are basically saying is, hey guys, this is our money, our country, we work our butts off, we create this thing, we pay taxes, here is the income, please look after it well. Hello. Don't doesn't mean squander it and spend it all over the bloody place on stupid stuff and put us in debt. You're supposed to look after it, and that's really the issue with America. It's not the fact that we can't afford to pay the debt. It's the fact that we are misusing it, or the people we elect are misusing it. I don't blame them. I blame us. We get what we deserve. We put these people in power. So right now, election coming up, the whole idea about this Trump Biden is nothing to do with either Trump or Biden. To me, it's very simple. Who of these two guys is more responsible to handle my money? I know for a fact Trump ate it, because based on the previous experience, all he knows is how to take money from people. He don't do anything how to look after it. All right. So, and during his campaign and during the Republican times, the debt keeps going up. Understandable. Why? Because they borrow money and then they use that for, rich people get more money, the poor people get a little money. Everybody thinks, oh, we are doing things. No. I mean, I borrowed $103,000. What the hell do I have to show for the $103,000? Not much. Some people, so what happened to all that money? Great question. That's the question. Anyway, thank you so much for asking that question. I hope that kind of answered it. And I get excited about these things, but that's the bottom line. Any other questions, guys? Oh, yeah. Is this a question about owning shared CC company? Isn't it like it's supporting them? So another good question. So one of the person is asking, is say, hey, you're saying credit card companies are bad or whatever else, and if you own the stock, aren't you supporting them? No, I own the stock because hey, I'm paying for all those stupid stuff for them to get rich. So why should they get rich? I get rich along with it if I can afford it. So it has nothing to do with emotion. It's pure to do with money. Okay, the credit companies aren't going anywhere. They exist. But why? The only way they are not going to go not exist is when people stop borrowing money. Well, that ain't happening. So I'm not trying to get them out of business. They perform a function, and their job is to do the best that they can, even though it might be getting as much money out of people as possible. It is our responsibility to deal with that. So I have a saying I should tell my students: anything good happens to me, I've done it. Anything bad happens to me, I've done it. I'm not blaming the credit card companies. I'm not blaming Donald Trump. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm blaming me for electing these guys. Excuse me. So I hope that answers the question about supporting them. It's not about, hey, altruistic and this and that, the other. It's not an emotional decision. It's pure numbers thing, It's not, it's like saying, hey, why are the credit card companies take advantage of the people? Let's not blame them. Let's blame the people who are borrowing them. Don't be borrowing so much money. End of story. Then they won't get rich. So, believe me, when that company goes down, I'm getting rid of that stock. All right. So, is that okay? What is it? Talk about owning share. Then is it okay to own arm dealers, cannabis companies, stock, and so on and so forth? No, for me, it is not, because it is not a service that they provide to people, that people have the choice of owning, right? The arm dealers companies and cannabis companies, all these companies, that's part of what I talked about advertising. They are not doing something that public willingly wants. Uh, so, most of that's a topic we'll discuss another time about arm companies and so on and so forth. The answer is the comparison doesn't hold because they credit card companies are providing a service that people have a choice not to use, similar to the gambling, right? Casinos and all that. I go to casinos every now and again, but I have the discipline. I'm going to take $100. I'm playing this for entertainment, and that's it. I'm not going there to get rich. The people have a choice. They can choose not to do. Same thing with the credit card company. They have a choice not to do it. Arms dealers, cannabis companies, smoking companies, that's a different thing because the products are harmful to the people. And that's the situation. So I hope that answers the question. We'll be talking about it way more than that. I'm okay to be here to answer the questions if there are any more, but for all purposes, we are kind of done with the session. So everybody feel free to leave and do whatever you got to do. The tennis match is still going on. If anybody wants to know, they're in the third set. That's all I'm going to tell you. So, and then by the way, there is a football match, soccer, England versus Spain. That should be a drum dinger. So, anybody else? Any other questions? Well, they were great questions. Thank you so much for coming, and don't be shy about asking questions. I love it to be challenged, but I don't know everything perfect. I do the best that I can, and I'm learning all the time. And every time I learn something new. Okay. With that, thank you so much. I would appreciate your feedback on the email, and I will see you next Sunday, same time, same place. How to grow money. All right. Have a wonderful day. Bye.